What is going on, everybody, and welcome to episode 41. I am your host, Marcus, and in this episode, we are talking about becoming a monster. Now, this concept, this idea, is actually generated from Jordan Peterson. He's a Canadian clinical psychologist, a culture critic, and professor of psychology. I've actually followed him for quite a while. If anybody is in the actually self-development space, you know who he is. He gave fantastic lectures. I mean, he's essentially recorded all his lectures to his class. I believe he actually went on Reddit and had a lot of discussion there as well. And that's essentially what built his popularity into creating books and a ton of great content about different perspectives, concepts, and ideas, and the way things really work, right? In psychology, being said, he has this thought, this idea of becoming a monster. And what does that mean? I'm sure you can Google, right, and YouTube the concept of becoming a monster. And for me, I've always thought about this, and I've applied a similar concept in my life, but it's not a monster, right? I understand his concept and his idea of becoming a monster, right? A monster is essentially being someone that is relentless and being something that is very focused on what they want, right? And going after it and doing whatever means necessary to getting what you want. Right? You think about that monster as being relentless and violent and vulgar and just going after it and getting it. And I understand where this is generated from, and thinking about the way life is and how we deal with life, right? Life can turn you into almost a monster. And a lot of times we suppress the monster. We don't let it come out. We know we have these demons inside. We know we have this thing we don't like about us, right? So it's like a lot of negative energy. It's a lot of this mass inside of us that is we don't want to let out. We want people to see a positive side of us, and we deal with this monster inside of us. For myself, I don't really see it as a monster. I can understand where the concept and idea come from, but I've always seen it is harnessing that energy, right? Because that energy is extremely important in how you can use it to manipulate it in a way to allow yourself to turn it into motivation to go out and get those things that you want. And for myself, I've always come at it with more of like a warrior approach. And I've always felt like, you know, how they talk about how you have past life regressions and stuff like that. And I've always felt like I've been an important person in battle and war almost at times. And we have like that war. Sometimes I feel like I have that warrior like instinct. I can hype myself up. I can go out and I can attack things. But being said, where did that come from, right? I think it comes from, again, when going back to this concept idea of being a monster and realizing that life can kind of warp you into being a monster, right? You get this negative energy from life, and what do you do with it, right? You'll have events that happen in your life. Like when I was younger, I used to get bullied almost every single day and get in fights almost every single day. And it helped me really mature my thought process at a young age and make me think about things different. I couldn't just enjoy my childhood, right? It was always a battle. And so being said, it's not saying my whole childhood was like that, right? We moved when I was younger, and I lived in a much better environment from that point on. But the bullying stuff it did a number. It caused me to mature quicker. And I am appreciative of that because it created that monster inside, right? Like I harnessed that energy. I built that aggression that built up anger of the world and what it was doing, and it was relentless and wouldn't let go. And so for me, I flipped that and turned it, well, instead of becoming that monster. And again, I understand where you want to become that monster, but be able to harness the energy and still be very humble in your approach to everything that you do, but harnessing that energy to just attack things and go after them and achieve the things that you want and be motivated. and just be relentless, be nonstop, and go out and get it, and whatever it takes to get it, you will get it and you will achieve it. And having that attitude, right? And I've used it towards that aggression of that monster that's been developed is more of, again, a warrior like instinct to just go after and achieve it and go get it. And what I had to overcome when I was dealing with the bullies and all that stuff, and aggression, and feeling like hopeless, and knowing what to expect every day when I walked into school, right? And how this has really morphed and developed me in the rest of my life, right? Because a lot of different times we talk about our past, the past events that have happened and how they have created the person we are today. And so I use this concept, this idea, and that, well, I've proven to myself that I've been able to overcome the bullying and everything, and I've approached life in that fashion, life being the bully and trying to suppress you and do all these other different things, and trying to overcome that. You have to have that warrior like instinct to realize that you're going to be beaten down, that you've prepared yourself for this moment, that you're going to be relentless, and you're going to continue to come forward and attack, and trying to make ground, right? You're trying to inch forward in life. And that's the instinct you have to have. And the standoff approach, and a lot of different concepts and ideas that float around today on how people like to not be direct about stuff. And for myself, I've struggled with that throughout my life too. And I've lost that part of me in different parts of my life. And we all do. We lose that sense of confidence. We lose different parts of us along our journey. And this is why it's good to continue to push yourself, especially during those times in comfort. Because a lot of times you can reach a point, you can push yourself to a point to where you feel like you've gained ground and you're happy with the results. But then you start neglecting how you got there, having that warrior like instinct, or having that monster, right? Developing that monster, and just essentially killing it off. And then once you start neglecting, you start falling back into old things, and you start losing that sense of confidence. You start losing that warrior like instinct. You start losing that monster you've developed. And you realize at this point, then you start losing the things that you've gained ground on. You're not making progress anymore. This is where it's important to become relentless and not let that monster die. And you feed that monster, right? Lock and chain it up. You have to be able to control the monster. And I think that's one of the biggest concepts taken from what Jordan Peterson was talking about, is you have to develop a monster in yourself, whether that's the monster or the warrior-like instinct in yourself. But you have to harness it. You can't let it get out of control. And he talks about this idea that you should focus, be able to harness it, right? And that's where the true power comes from, is when you can harness it. You know what you're capable of. You know, on 100% and 10%, you can destroy it all, but you don't, because you're humbled. But in your mind, you know what you're capable of. And that's one of the strongest things you can have in yourself. And one of the strongest things I've developed in myself is I know what I'm capable of, because I've been through the bullying, through other different events in my life. And I've proven to myself that, you know, I've been torn down, and I've created this monster that's like, I'm going to be relentless. It doesn't matter. You can destroy me multiple times, and I will come back, and I will do better than the last time. I will learn from the last time, but I'm not going to do it in a harmful fashion. I'm not going to do it in a violent fashion. I'm going to do it in a constructive, a calculated way, and be forward with everything, and try to be as forward with everything as possible. And again, being forward about a lot of different things, especially in my life, you know, I've went through periods of my life where I wasn't as forward as I needed to be. You know, I wasn't aggressive as I needed to be during that time. And again, because you lose yourself, you go through phases, you go through cycles. If there's anybody out there that thinks it's just 110% all the time, it's not that way. It comes in cycles. You have to rebuild the confidence. You have weak moments in your life. I think some people will judge you on weak moments, and people will forever see you in that weak light and not know that I've moved on from that. Yes, I will have weak moments, so do you. But being said, I know where to go and dive deep and find that warrior instinct, find that monster and bring him back to the forefront, not let him rest. And that is one of the hardest things, again, because when you start becoming neglectful, you get too lackadaisical in your approach to things. And you notice that it's like how they say, you do one thing and that essentially turns into everything, right? You do one small thing, you start neglecting one small thing, and that butterflies into other choices that you make. You start neglecting other different things, and then you realize that the progress that you've made again starts falling off, and you find that you have to start tuning it back up a notch. But that is life. You have to realize when to uh, feed that monster. You need to be feeding that monster, feeding that energy, challenging yourself, pushing yourself, being relentless on those things that you want. Because if you're not relentless at going after those things, you will not achieve them. You become too passive on those things that you want, and they never happen. And again, another concept, another idea, going back to when I was younger, and I realized, a longest time, I was just observant of the way people were. I've always been observant, right? People said I've been shy, and I think at moments in my life, I kind of felt shy, but it was more so I didn't feel like I have anything to contribute. And I also felt like it's in my mind, it was better to be, I was always an observer of what was going on. And when I saw other people, just the way they acted around other people, right? Just how they stood off about a lot of different things in life. When people are asking for leaders, when people are asking for people to step forward, people will step back because again, they feel that they don't have nothing to bring to the table. They feel like they don't want to be the ones to screw up. They fear judgment. And when you're talking about being that monster and just being relentless and going in there and taking the shots and not worrying about it, you're looking at what other people do, and you realize that people are very passive. People will say a lot of different things, but it is in their actions that you see what is truly going on. Right. And for myself, when I started being more observant, when I was being aware that I was observant of everything, and how I talk about you need to be very observant about what is going on and need to know when to be aggressive and realize that, hey, I have to push forward. I have to do this or it's not going to happen. And I realized at some point when I was younger that, hey, if I don't step forward, if I'm not the one that is trying to lead, and not be so worried about what other people think, it's not going to happen. And again, I can relate back to whatever age that was. I must have been in third grade or something, and realizing that, if I don't go get it, it's just not going to happen. And there again have been cycles in my life where I've neglected, and it comes back to where I'm at that point. I'm at that turning point. Am I just going to accept what's going on, or am I going to be relentless? Am I going to let that unleash the monster again and just go after it and attack it and go after the things that you want? And I think again, it comes in cycles where you have to release that monster. Right. I think having that monster, and when I talk about becoming a monster, it's not always 110%. It's hard to maintain, right? So I think it takes a lot of energy to do that. It takes some hibernation, if you will, to gather your thoughts, gather your ideas, gather your energy, come up with a battle plan, right? But it's not sticking onto a battle plan and having to formulate everything. Being tactical, yes, it should be planned out, but it shouldn't be so planned out that you don't take action. It should be just thought enough to where it's a calculated risk, and then you go out and you get it, and you don't hold back, right? And it takes time. It takes years to possibly build this. For myself, it took years to build this, and then to be aware of the fact that it came in cycles, to be aware of the fact that there were times when I was neglecting it. There were times I was standoffish. There were times I just bypassed it and I actually didn't go after it. And realizing that when you become aware of this, that okay, now is the time. Now I realize that I've been slacking, and I've been slacking a little too long, right? You slack off, and that's fine, right? We all do this. It's just going. Our wiring is that way. It doesn't matter how good you are, right? You're going to have weak times. It is being like, okay, well, now I need to fix it now. Now is when I need to step up. Now is when I'm closest. Now is not the time to let off, and continue to push forward, to be that monster, and go after it. Because if you don't, it's not going to come. And I see so many people, when going back to the observing of other people, I see so many people wish and hope that things would be better. And well, if even if I'm not a political person at all, but people want other people to help them get into position. But you have to realize it is up to you to be able to actually go after it. People can open doors for you, but it is up to you to walk through them. It's up to you to find those people. It's up for you to develop the skills. It's up for you um, to develop your own luck. It is up to you. It's not just going to fall into your lap. And yes, you can be a hard worker, but you still have to go out and seek, right? You still have to go get it, because if you don't, it's just never going to come. And there are many times, again, in my life where I was just realizing it's just not working. It's just not working. And, I found myself thinking, well, maybe it's something that somebody else is doing. And as soon as my thought process started thinking that, I was like, that's not right. There's something I could be doing. Again, because I realized that by sitting back and just waiting, nothing happens. You find that you're in that continuous cycle of just waiting. Just waiting. Just wait till the next time. Just wait till the next time. Just wait till the next time. And you realize it never comes. And some people are okay with that. Some people will allow that beast or that monster to come out, and they make those leaps and those bounds, and they do it in small doses. But then you realize that there's a bigger world, right? And I talk about this concept, this idea of trying to reach out, right? You get to a point where you're good, and some people are fine with good, and that's perfectly fine with you if that's what you want. For like me, like I've had many positions in life a lot of people would essentially kill to have. And for me, good was okay, but it wasn't great. Like I want to be great at whatever it is and I'm working on in that moment, because I realize that everything comes in cycles, and people have this fixed concept, this fixed idea that you achieve that and that's it, and then it's just glorious after that. And for me, I don't think you can ever just strive for that, because once you get there, you realize that the end goal, right? You need to be constantly seeking. And this is where that monster, that concept of having that monster, constantly seeking, constantly being relentless to improve yourself, to get better, right? And so for me, like, yeah, good is okay, but I want to be great. I want to be the best version of myself. And to be able to do that, I have to be relentless. I have to be that warrior. Again, I don't really like the concept of the monster. I understand the concept of the monster because you want to unleash it. You want to be able to control that monster and go out and get it. For me, it's more that warrior-like instinct in being tactical, taking risk is a big thing, but being strategic about the risk is extremely important. I like to be tactical in that fashion. And even though I may not talk a lot about specific things during specific times, it's because I observe and I want to see a lot of what other people's thoughts and ideas are when you're in a room. I think sometimes people may have a tough grasp of that and what that implies, because of the fact that I want to see how people act, right? I want to see uh, how people are before I step forward. And it's being tactical about things, and it may not be purpose driven, but it's just the way I've always operated. Maybe it's because of the way I've grown up, has caused me to be that way, to be observer, to see, to feel people out before I start taking um, in my approach on things. But then once I do, then I form that strategic plan, and I like that warrior instinct to come out because I've observed. I know what you're capable of. I know where your confidence is at. I know those things that drive you because I've observed and I've been tactical about it. And so, in knowing that, that gives me an advantage that allows me to go attack, right? And this is like any good soldier or warrior, however you want to say it. It's because of the fact that I'm doing my due diligence, whether it's something that I'm aware of or not. It is always something I've just been. It's just the type of person I've been, is trying to know the landscape, being tactical, and then just attacking it, or being a monster, where my thought process about being a monster is it's not very controlled, right? And I can understand where you want that aggressive energy to just go after it, and then being able to control it is where the power comes in. Mine is more knowing where that power comes in, knowing how to hype myself up, knowing how to keep motivating myself to keep going. Realize that yes, I make mistakes, right? None of us are perfect. And I think a lot of people get hung up on, again, when you look back at weaker points in your life and people see that's who you are. That's not true. How are you going to point at, if we are people, if we are beings that allow ourselves to create ourselves each and every day? Who I am today is not who I was 5, 10 years ago, but people will only see you in that light. They don't see who you are today. They don't see what you're capable of today. And being said, if you start neglecting, you can fall back into those people you were 5, 10 years ago. This is why it's important not to get stuck on the past or get stuck in the future, but being relentless and knowing where to go when you need that monster, need that warrior spirit inside you to go start attacking stuff. Because if you don't have it, you're not going to be able to just get it. This is where being courageous, and yes, there are consequences. Yes, there are these things and that, but if you live too much in the box, you're going to realize that things aren't going to go your way. You have to realize that you have to think outside the box on a lot of different things. And I know it's hard just because the way society is built, you have to going outside of the box, and people look at you different. People will talk about you. People will judge you. People will do all these other different things. But you, again, when you have that instinct of a monster or the instinct of a warrior, it doesn't matter what they're saying, because you're so focused on what you're going for. You're so relentless on what you're going for. You're so motivated to go after what you're going for. Like nothing else matters, right? You almost have this this tunnel vision on what it is that you want, and that's extremely important to go after those things that you want. You don't want to be distracted by all these other different things. This is why I also talk about how you should have, you should only be focusing on like 3 or 4 things in your life and not multiple things. Because if you have multiple things, then you can't focus on what really matters. You got too much on your plate. You need to cut it down, set priorities. This is where my tactical side comes in. Because when I think about the concept and the idea of a monster, I think, yes, you need to harness that energy from where it generates from that pain of those things in life that happen. Right? You should harness the pain. It's what more for you and built the strong character that you are. you use that to your advantage and you go start attacking those things that you want in life. You go after that and you go get it. And how do you become a monster? You become a monster by looking at those things that have driven you, those things that have beaten you down, those hard times in your life, remembering those to build, to create, to generate that warrior, and harnessing it and not letting it get out of control or allowing it to control you to live in the past, or all these other different concepts and ideas of how past events are defining who you are today. It's just using that energy, knowing where to tap into that energy. That's what's important. That's where the warrior comes from. That's where uh, the monster comes from, is tapping into that energy and controlling it. That takes time. It takes working on your inner self and being aware, knowing what draws you down, knowing what powers you, what motivates you. How can you be self-motivating to go get it? And that's where it is. That's what gets you the results that you want. It's by building the monster, by building the warrior.